You're listening to Winnipeg's Classic 107. My name is Simon Rusnak. For nearly a century, the Winnipeg Youth Orchestras have given young musicians an opportunity to perform alongside their peers and improve their musical abilities in a supportive and stimulating orchestral environment. This year, however, participants haven't sat in chairs next to their fellow musicians, but they have appeared on screen next to them. To tell us more, I'm joined by Dan Scholz, one of the orchestra's conductors, and two musicians, River Sawchyn and Sophie Reimer-Epp. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Morning.
Oh, it's great to see you all. Right off the hop, I do want to make something clear for people who haven't participated in Winnipeg Youth Orchestras at all, like myself. It is orchestras, plural. Dan, can you tell us a little bit about the ensemble that you conduct?
Sure. My ensemble is the Youth Symphony. It's the most senior of the groups. There are three orchestras in the organization. The most senior is the Youth Symphony. Then we have the intermediate, which is also a full symphony orchestra with winds, brass, percussion, and strings. That's conducted by my wife, Andrea Bell. And then we have the youth strings, which is the entry-level orchestra. And that is just strings, violins, violas, cellos, bass. And that is conducted by Keith Durda, who is the second trombone player in the Winnipeg Symphony and a graduate of the Winnipeg Youth Orchestra's organization.
No way. How special is that? I know our music director, Chris Wolf, also came up through the program as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so is Andrea. Andrea was a member as well for many years.
So in future conversations, we'll be hearing from those other two groups, like you say, Youth Strings and Youth Concert Orchestra. How long have you been involved with the Youth Symphony?
You know, I get asked that question a lot, and I think it's about 15 years. It's either 14, 15, maybe 16. I'm not sure anymore.
I mean, obviously, it's been quite a while, and you're a very busy fellow, as your email signature reminded me. Obviously, this is something that's very important to you. What's so special about Youth Symphony?
It is an opportunity it's the best of the best kids, and to have them be side by side and to feed off of one another, to give support for one another. It's unlike anything else that I have ever come across. I grew up with that. My teachers were the conductors. My best friends were my stand partners or somebody from across the orchestra. And it goes right across the country. Every city, every province, every town has one. We have a national one that encompasses people from every province and every territory. It's just a fabulous way to get together, do something that we all enjoy doing, and to do it very well in such a supportive environment.
How fantastic. Well, let's hear from some of those musicians now. River, let me bring you into the conversation. How long have you been performing with Youth Symphony?
Youth Symphony specifically, it's been, I think this is my third year with the Youth Symphony Orchestra, but I've been with the youths, just the youth orchestras for 7 years now.
Wow, so you've come up through the program, and we met a few years ago. You came into the Classic 107 studio as a virtuoso young artist, and we chatted about your accomplishments as a violinist and also as a fiddle player, and you told us a really cool story about busking on the High Line in New York. And then at the very end of the conversation, you threw in, I also do a little bit of a composition. Well, fast forward a couple of years, not just a little bit of composition, you've written a full work for the Youth Symphony. Tell us about that.
Yeah, sure. It's first of all, it's a really amazing experience for me as a student composer because, most of the time you write it in your software and then it gets played back very poorly by software instruments. And you're thinking, wow, what would this sound like if real people played it? And so, this is a piece called Requiem for Simplicity that I started writing just at the beginning of kind of COVID quarantine. Everyone was very unsure. Things were very not normal. And this piece is kind of a melange of that. And also, I kind of have been writing this piece for a very long time. So it incorporates a lot of the past year or so of my emotions. And so there's also aspects of more so growing up, kind of realizing that childhood is quite simple at times, and then you're kind of leaving some of that behind. So it's a phenomenal experience to have that played by the youth orchestras and my peers as well. They're all my friends, and Dan is just absolutely phenomenal with it. I remember the first rehearsal we played it, he really knew the piece. He had listened to it, looked at the score, just memorized everything. And he was saying, okay, now this here, and I want this here. And I was thinking, yes, that's exactly what I want. And he really found a way to make it happen and make it work. So it's a really amazing experience.
Fantastic. And I mean, you could hear Dan talking about it in terms of the nurturing environment, and this, the idea of a youth orchestra and an ensemble coming together is very special. But to have one of your own write a piece of music, it just makes it even more special. I want to backtrack just a little bit. If you can expand on the idea a little bit more. You said it's a work titled Requiem to Simplicity. Tell us about that. I mean, a requiem is typically a memorial mass, a mass for the dead. Is that kind of a nod to, you were saying, the youthful wonder and the simple times, or almost like the change that has come in the past year for all of us in so many ways? Is it all of that coming together?
Yeah, it really is. I knew I was writing a requiem before I knew it was for simplicity. So I had kind of the requiem title, but I didn't really know what I was writing for. And then it's after kind of more events transpired, I kind of had some bigger realizations, and I kind of knew what the piece was more about.
Sophie, let me bring you also into this conversation. Before we get to River's piece, tell us a little bit about yourself. What instrument do you play, and how long have you been a part of the Winnipeg Youth Orchestra's organization?
Well, I've been playing the violin for about 10 years, I think it's been. And I started orchestra 6 years ago, I think. It's the kind of thing where you feel like you've just been a part of it forever, because it's hard to remember a time when you weren't playing it in the organization. I remember, like, you're with all the same people growing up through these orchestras. And I remember seeing River being principal second of the youth strings, thinking like, wow, one day I might be there. And now this year I'm principal second of the youth symphony, which is just a total honor, because I get to work really closely with Dan and with River and the second violin section. And that's just super cool.
Sounds totally cool. And again, it's just kind of continuing to pass the torch and that mentorship and that environment. Now, this year has been anything but normal. Tell us about what rehearsals have been like for you and the orchestra.
Well, it's been a little interesting because you can't exactly rehearse orchestras online, right?
Yeah.
So it started off, we did a lot of listening to our pieces, because that's a really big part of music, is hearing other groups and how they've interpreted the music. And you can only listen to it so many times. And so now what we've been doing for the past few rehearsals is that Dan will screen share an excellent recording that he's found on YouTube, and then we all mute ourselves and play along. So it's not the same thing as playing with your friends and having everyone around you, but it certainly helps, and will indicate to you which parts of the piece you actually have to practice like a lot. And it is in place of being in person and getting that same experience.
Yeah, of course it isn't the same thing. And that's something that we're all navigating. Of course, we're connecting digitally, which in and of itself adds that added layer of awkwardness, but at least we can keep together. And in terms of producing a final product, you have put together a virtual orchestra. I understand you had a hand in putting this together. Tell us about the video component and how you went about getting everybody's parts and putting it together and all of that good stuff.
Well, I started off learning how to do this kind of video editing in my grade 10 digital filmmaking class. And I really hadn't done much in terms of video editing, playing around with iMovie when I was younger, but that's where I learned to use the program that I used for this project, which is Adobe Premiere. And we just did simple projects in that class, but that was kind of my foundation for learning how to do this kind of editing. And then in June, during the lockdown, the band at school decided they wanted to do a virtual ensemble. And my teacher, who taught me that class, was like, hey, Sophie could do that because she knows music and, she has these editing skills. And so that was the first project I ever did. And that was, maybe 16 musicians. And it gave me the foundation to do what we did with this project, which was a much larger scale than that project was. I think there was 43 videos in it or something by the end. And yeah, it was really an incredible experience, because these are such high caliber musicians that are submitting these recordings that, like, it's not like you have massive editing to do. It's more just the putting it together and making it all seem like we're playing as one.
And you've done a fantastic job. It is up on YouTube. We'll be sure to get the links out there. Dan, I want to come back around to you. I mean, we've been hearing about how this is really such a musician-led initiative, right? From the piece of music that is Rivers, and then the video that's being put together by Sophie and everybody else there. And of course, the musicians themselves playing. That has to be so gratifying for you as the conductor, to just see how invested and involved everybody is.
It really is. We did have an opportunity back in October. We played through it maybe twice or three times in person. And the first time we played it, you could see the expression on everybody's faces afterwards. And they're all looking at River, and they're just sort of awash in emotion. It's so hard to verbalize. And then I said, well, when we went into lockdown again, I said, let's make this a project. We've got a goal. It's River's piece. And River and Sophie volunteered to do all of the audio and video editing. And we had 100% participation from every musician recording. And that's what you want to see. You hope that everybody's going to step it up like that. And deep down, I knew everybody would, but the way that it happened so quickly is it's really quite special.
It's really special, and I'm sure all of us are kind of chomping at the bit now, going, all right, so what's next? And I guess that's the last thing I want to ask you is any plugs to put out there for Youth Symphony Orchestra? Anything major upcoming?
Well, depending on how the protocols go and how everybody's response to the virus is, I don't think that we will have anybody in our audience for our spring concert, but it's looking hopeful, like we will be able to at least get back together and rehearse, and we'll record it and stream it. River is going to play the Mozart Third G Major Violin Concerto. We're going to play all of Beethoven Fourth Symphony. We have another winner of our scholarship competition, Alice Nee, that's going to play the first movement of the Seventh de Vienne Flute Concerto. So there are a lot of things happening, and everybody's working very hard. And it's nice to have these kind of projects. Everybody gets together at rehearsal. I will leave at the end of an hour and a half or 2 hours, and people are still on there for another half an hour. They're jamming, they're talking, they're just happy to see each other and interact.
Well, absolutely fantastic. And I'm so excited to see what is next, of course, with a little bit of trepidation and cautiousness, but there is, of course, that silver lining. River, Sophie, and Dan, thanks so much for taking the time today to chat with us here at Classic 107.
Thank you very much,
Simon.
Thank you.